Well, now we know who the Vikings are going to face in the Wildcard round. They're going to head to the Superdome in New Orleans to face the Saints, thanks to Pete Carroll, who is the undisputed worst head coach in the history of the league when having the ball at the goal line. We already know about the no handoff to Marshawn Lynch back in the Super Bowl. However, going back to last night's game, you converted a pass on 4th and 10 to land at the inch-yard line. All you got to do is hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch. Deja vu. Instead, delay of game, backed you up 5 yards, game over. So if Seattle had won, Seattle would have been the more favorable matchup for the Vikings. Instead, because Seattle lost, the Vikings have to head to New Orleans. But no use crying over spilt milk. So I want to do a quick season review for the Minnesota Vikings before going into questions that I have for the Vikings going into the playoffs. So quick season review. You finished 10-6. I predicted an 11-5 record. So solid season overall. You did, however, finish 1-4 against winning teams, 2-4 in the division. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay. The regular season is over and done with. We are in the postseason now. Regular season, schmegler season. The postseason is starting. Everybody is 0-0. You made it to the dance. Now it's time to tango. Now, the questions that I have for the Vikings heading into the playoffs is, number one, will the real Kirk Cousins please stand up? As in, are we going to get MVP caliber Kirk Cousins that we've seen for the majority of this 2019 season? Or are we going to get who he's been for the majority of his career, which is pretty meh, or in some cases disastrous, like we saw last week against Green Bay? The Vikings need the former in order to have the best chance to win. Also, Adam Thielen, you ready or not? Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be a contributor for this team, or are you going to have him out there just to be out there? Because the last 4 games, Adam Thielen has a grand total of 4 catches. That's not going to get it done. We don't have the luxury to have Adam Thielen out there just simply as a decoy playing 10 on 11, because defenses, they're not going to be scared because the last quarter of the season that he's played, he's been ineffective. So if he's not really 100% ready to go, then go with BC Johnson. Or if he is ready to go, then get him the damn ball. And next question for the Vikings heading into the playoffs, will Dalvin Cook be 100% ready to go? Because for all you advanced analytics stat geeks out there, for every football discussion you want to bring up charts, graphs, and tables, well, you know what? Dalvin Cook, he's had a great year, but in the grand scheme of things, he's really not all that important compared to the offensive line, compared to Kirk Cousins, compared to the receivers that the Vikings have. It's really more on the zone blocking scheme that Gary Kubiak brings to the table. And when you consider the run blocking grade that Pro Football Focus gives the Vikings offensive line, and beep, boop, beep, boop, beep. Folks, we saw what the run game was like without Dalvin Cook last week against Green Bay. Dalvin Cook, there are so many times where it's, oh my God, that should be a no gain. Instead, he turns that into 3 or 4 yards. Without Dalvin Cook, the run game suffers, and the trickle-down effect happens. If the run game suffers without Dalvin Cook, then the pass game suffers as well. You need Dalvin Cook to give yourself the best chance to win, along with Kirk Cousins playing like an MVP, because otherwise, if he's not out there, then it's really doom and gloom. He is the most important piece for this Vikings offense. Next question for the Vikings heading into the playoffs is, will the Saints pick on Anthony Barr in pass coverage? Because I tell you what, bro, you can't hide this dude in pass coverage against this Saints team. No, you can't. You can't say, you know what, we're just going to line up Anthony Barr against a bunch of bums, because the players that they have to work with outside their receivers, Jared Cook, the last 5 games is playing out of his mind. He's averaging in these last 5 games 77 yards and a touchdown per game. Also, Alvin Kamara, he can be pretty damn dangerous too. So Mike Zimmer, you have to prepare for that. I don't want to see a repeat of Anthony Barr in the LA Rams game last year. You have to expect that at any team that you face in the playoffs, assuming that you move on from New Orleans, is going to try to exploit any and all weaknesses that you have. And that includes Anthony Barr in pass coverage, which brings us to Mike Zimmer, now in his 6th season as head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Are you finally ready to take this team to the next level? I'm not talking about a participation trophy. Hey, we at least made it to the playoffs. We're above 500. We have a winning record. Yay. No. We're talking about championships. This team should be able to compete for a championship. This is a top 5 roster in the NFL. Mike Zimmer has had a top 5 roster in the league for at least the last 3 years, arguably the last 4. Are you finally ready to take this team to the next level? Can you at least make your team look like they at least belong on the same field as the competition that we're playing against in the playoffs? We'll have to see, man. That's what I'm going to be looking for. So those are the questions that I have for the Minnesota Vikings heading into the playoffs. As far as the Chicago game yesterday, the Vikings lost 21-19. Not really much to take away from this game except for 2 things. Number one, Ifeadi Odenigbo is a really, really good player who I've been right about since day one. So for those that have been following me for at least the last, I guess now this makes it 2 years, going back into the 2018 preseason, I said, yo, this dude, Odenigbo, this guy can be pretty nice. We need to have nonstop productive defensive linemen on this roster. Instead, the Vikings waived him. He went over to Cleveland. Then Cleveland waived him. Then he went over to Arizona before coming back to Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. The Vikings are very, very lucky to have this guy. And if necessary, because Everson Griffin next year in 2020, he's going to count $13.5 million against the cap. So got some decisions to make with Everson Griffin. But if you have to move on from him, then move Danielle Hunter over from left end to right end. And I'd be fine with having Odenigbo play left end. He's a really good player. He's basically this year's version of last year's Stephen Weatherly, who I thought would take it to the next level, except for they brought Everson Griffin back. So Odenigbo, he's had a very, very good year. And the second takeaway that I have from yesterday's game against the Chicago Bears, Les Brown, he's a motivational speaker, and for the most part, I feel like motivational speakers blow nonstop smoke up our asses. You can do anything. Yeah, all right. But Les Brown, I feel like he speaks with conviction behind his words. And one of the things that he said, and I'll never forget, is sometimes if you have a goal in life or if you have big dreams, if you're too scared, sometimes you may need someone else to pave the way for you in order to set the example and say, okay, maybe I can do it. He brought the example of Roger Bannister, and I don't know if this was back in the 1940s or whatever the hell, where Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute barrier, being able to run a mile 4 laps around an outside track in under 4 minutes. And before that, no one thought that it was possible. But since then, several thousands of people have been able to break the 4-minute barrier, saying, wow, Roger Bannister, he was able to do it. Maybe I can do it too. And I can tell you this, folks, after watching yesterday's game, I have been inspired because watching Sean Mannion, I now have the belief that I too can be a backup quarterback in the NFL. This dude sucks. Bro, Sean Mannion sucks. And forget Kyle Sloter, who deserves to be the backup on this team. We're not going to rehash that. But for everybody out there that look for every reason possible to shit on Kyle Sloter, he doesn't deserve it. What the fuck has Sean Mannion done to deserve to be on an NFL roster? Forget the Vikings. On an NFL roster. Listen, this dude getting the, league minimum to get paid in the NFL is $500,000? So he can't do anything on the field. The belief is he can help Kirk Cousins prepare for games, and he's good in practice. So if you need someone to help Kirk Cousins prepare for games for $500,000, oh, bro, I'm your guy. And if you need someone to not be productive on the field to where all you're doing is asking me to throw nonstop checkdowns to the running backs and tight ends, wide open running backs and tight ends on checkdowns or screen passes, I am your guy. This dude, I'm sorry, I'm sure he's a great guy. Sean Mannion as a quarterback absolutely stinks. That was hilarious to watch. But anyway, we do this 3 times a week, man. Mediocre Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. Check me out on Twitter at realistic_Randy, Facebook at Realistic Randy. The next podcast will be on Wednesday. It's playoff time, baby. Don't be scared. Yeah, all right, fine. Seahawks, that's a more favorable matchup, but don't be scared. Playoff time. We supposed to be contenders, right? It's time to contend. We'll see you on Wednesday.